Welcome to episode 7. I am so excited to have you. If you haven't been here before, my name's Paul Sparks. I coach people one-to-one in spirituality and I teach online classes. So this week I want to talk about something really important because I think that people misunderstand it, and that is the power of building resilience. I meet many people who say that they are spiritual and they misunderstand the importance of resilience. So they talk about spirituality in a way that they are a little bit airy-fairy. So people say like, I'm really sensitive to energies and I don't like being around certain people because I feel down and I can feel the changes in the energy today, and like this real sensitivity. This is not spirituality, right? It's not real spirituality. And certainly from what I've learned from my teachers and what I teach the people that I work with is that resilience is really important. I remember a story that comes to mind in the workplace many years ago. I had a one-to-one conversation with someone who I'd just met, and she said, I'm really emotional. I cry every time I have a one-to-one, and she was almost proud of it. And my take on that was, you're in a professional setting, you're in the workplace, and it's not appropriate to preempt the fact that you're going to cry. Now, sometimes it's going to happen, but to preempt that you're so weak that you're going to cry every single time, she needed more resilience, right? And I think that often when I go to people on a one-to-one basis and I tell them this, it kind of shocks them. They expect that with a spiritual teacher it's going to be floaty and nice and gentle, but actually when we are really embracing the spiritual path and we want to see authentic change in our lives, we have to be resilient. We have to build this core. So what do we mean to be resilient? The example that I give many times is about an oak tree. So if you think about a really solid oak tree, it doesn't really matter what the weather is. If it's sunny, if it is really windy, that tree's not moving. But the thing that keeps it so resilient is the roots. It's the part under the ground that we don't see. And when we study spirituality, the goal really is that we should be building our own internal roots. We should be building our core to a point where the ups and downs of life don't make us like a leaf in the wind, that we have an inner strength that we can handle the good, the bad and the ugly, all the challenges that life brings. This is true spirituality, and this is resilience. So the idea really here is that we have to do the internal work. We have to look at our mindset, our approach to things. How do we handle situations when things don't go to plan or things don't go our way? Are we crumbling every single time? Are we like that person that we mentioned that says, the energy doesn't feel right? We use these really big elusive terms like energy without much substance, right? If you drill into that with people, very often they don't know what they mean. And actually very often it's, I'm sorry to say, a sign of weakness, right? This is not what we're looking at here. So when we talk about building and understanding and working on ourselves and our patterns, the goal really is like that we should find our purpose, that we should find meaning in our existence, that we want to plow forward, we want to take action, and we want to build a more resilient version of who we are. Now, what we have to look at is, what does true resilience look like? How do we build that day to day? Because I think that sometimes we have a misunderstanding when we look at people around us and say, who's a resilient person? I think that certainly being in the west of Scotland, where I'm from, there are a lot of people who walk around and think that it means you need to be tough, that it means that you need to show no weakness, right? That we can all imagine the guy who walks about and he's like the big man and he doesn't take any nonsense and he's kind of out there in the world, but he thinks everything's against him, right? And he never backs down and he never shows any emotion. And we sometimes think that equates to resilience. But I probably don't have to convince you that when you speak to someone like that, you can see that they often are walking about with like pent up rage. They think the world's against them, right? We've met those people that everywhere they go, they're like ready in fighting mode, right? That they are ready to stand up for themselves and that they never cry and that they never... This is not resilience, right? Because when you look at that person, does that look like fulfillment? Does that look like an enjoyable existence? This is a complete misunderstanding of what it truly means to be a resilient person. So what's the alternative? True resilience comes through vulnerability. And that feels like a bit of a contradiction, right? There's a balance here. Everything in life is about trying to find some sort of equilibrium, in that how we find our resilience is by embracing vulnerability, to look and run towards our challenges, those places inside of us where we are limited, where we do have fear, where we are blocked, where we are thinking in a small way, and to say, you know what, I'm only going to be courageous if I can also be vulnerable in the first place. I'm only going to build my core if I'm not afraid to lift the bonnet, right, and say, where am I not okay? Where is my behaviour not correct? Where am I self-sabotaging? Right? And when we look at vulnerability, many people usually, tend to avoid it because it feels like the opposite. It feels like that makes us weak. It feels like that will expose who we are. People are going to take advantage of us. And yes, it's about being vulnerable in the right setting and with the right people that you trust. So that can be a friend, a family member, it could be with a spiritual coach. Having somebody in your corner that you can open yourself up to, right? Even if it's yourself and you're journaling, it's really got to be this space where you're able to face all of those parts of you that are vulnerable, to expose that vulnerability. And through that, what we really do is, it's not enough just to share the vulnerability, but what we then say is, what is this teaching me? This part of me is not okay. How do I change it? How do I change my outlook? How do I change my actions? And through that experience, what starts to happen is everything that presents itself in your life is an opportunity for growth. So the good we embrace, right? We want more of it. We're grateful. But the challenges and the difficult moments also provide us an opportunity to be vulnerable, but to ask the question, why is this in my life? What was this sent to teach me? I don't like how this feels, so how do I elevate myself so that I'm stronger next time, so that I don't make the same mistakes, right? So that I don't lose the relationship or lose money or whatever it might be. We have to take those opportunities and build them into our tapestry to really understand, how is this serving me? And here's a really key point. It's not about pretending that the negative is positive. The positive vibes only crew, this is not for you, right? It's not about denial, but it's about looking at the situations in our life and saying, how am I using it to propel my growth, to push me forward? And when we have this mindset and we embrace our vulnerability, when we look at those places that aren't okay, when we expose them in the right way, only then will we really start to build an inner resilience, because nothing can touch us, right? We're always going to have ups and downs. Things are always going to go wrong, right? And that's another thing, as a side note, that I tell my clients all the time, is that we have to expect that life is supposed to be full of challenges. We will have challenges till the day we leave this earth, but it's what we do with those challenges and how we embrace them and how we use them for growth that will ultimately lead us to be the most resilient version of who we are.